Welcome to FYI. My guest today is a man who is extremely well versed in the hospitality industry, and he's going to tell us all about how hotels work and just everything you'd ever want to know. He's a wonderful man. Here in the Twin Cities, Dan Krahn. He's the Kaeding Management Compass 45 Hospitality Director of Operations. And I want to tell you a little bit more about Dan. Yeah, Dan is actually a decorated industry veteran. Dan has worked in nearly every facet of hospitality. He has obtained recognition as well as served on many advisory boards. He began his career as a sales manager with Marriott International in the early 90s. From there, he worked his way up through the industry, serving as housekeeping manager, assistant general manager, director of operations, and most recently, VP Sand Hospitality, overseeing up to 26 hotels. As the director of operations for Kaeding Management, Compass 45 Hospitality, Dan is responsible for overseeing properties and general managers. This includes optimizing revenue and sales opportunities, cost containment, and guest feedback, and implementing new directives for growth. He's also responsible for getting guidelines for personal evaluations, recruitment, and advancement for all employees within the company. Dan holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Hospitality and Tourism Management from the University of Wisconsin-Stout, where he has served as a mentor, I should say, and a member, too. You're a member of that whole crowd.
Yes.
Dan, it's wonderful to have you here today.
Yeah, thank you, Barry.
Thank you so much. How did you become interested in the hotel industry?
It was really a bit of a fluke. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do when I grew up. I'm still not sure what I want to do when I grow up. I don't know if any of us do, but
that's right.
My really at the time, late on in my high school career, I figured that I really enjoyed the idea of teaching. That's really what I wanted to be as a teacher. The challenge with it was being a graduate of De La Salle High School here in Minnesota and having that experience. I wasn't really sure that the salary and the financial well-being was going to be what I would have wanted, and so I decided to look at industries where I could still put emphasis on teaching, and I really got familiar with the hospitality industry. And I have one of my mother's cousins happened to be in the hospitality industry, manager down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And he happened to come home for a family reunion one year, and we had a wonderful conversation, and one thing led to another. And I went my freshman year to Mankato State University, and then after really deciding that hospitality is what I wanted to do, I transferred to UW-Stout, and the rest is history.
Well, that's wonderful. So the UW-Stout then had disciplines to teach hospitality?
Yes, UW-Stout back then was one of the more, and still is, one of the more prestigious hospitality universities. So I got my bachelor's in hospitality and tourism management, and they still have the degree today.
It actually boggles the mind, to me anyway. I've kind of been involved with that partially in Las Vegas. I worked for Howard Hughes, who owned 6 hotels there, and of course with one of your wonderful people, Jamie Goodchild. He and I both worked together for the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, who had 2 hotels in Mille Lacs and Hinckley, and you kind of got to know a little bit, and compared to you, just this much,
yeah.
About how you treat people, how difficult really it must be in some instances to say, look at all these people we're serving, and the people we hire have to know that every one of them is so important. Is it a difficult situation, or has it been the same since the very beginning for you to today, when things have changed a little bit, or have they not changed that much?
Yeah, that's a great question, Barry. And as a matter of fact, we just had this conversation this morning in our office, and we were talking about how, with all of the changes in technology and the diversity of hotel brands today that didn't exist 20 years ago, Airbnb, I mean, you name it, how our industry has evolved in terms of the segmentation and the choices that people have. Technology has changed in terms of the booking channels. there was no such thing as Expedia or Booking.com, and there are multiple sites now that have to be managed that customers go to make their hospitality choices. And yet with all of those changes, and I've been doing this now for over 25 years, is it still boils down to what we call the 3 key drivers of hospitality. And those 3 key drivers are associate engagement, guest satisfaction, and financial performance. The idea is those will be very interdependent, but at times as a leader you have to be very purposeful about choosing what is the priority at that particular time. The idea is the more you, as you mentioned, hire the right people, you bring people on your team that choose hospitality because they want to make a positive difference in people's lives. Mm-hmm. If you think of the word hospitality, where did it come from? Hospital. It's really about caring for people. And if you can find those people that have the spirit to serve, it really makes a tremendous difference. And then once you find those individuals that have that spirit to serve, it's truly the ability to give them the tools and resources to be empowered to help us manage our business more effectively. And what I mean by that is, if their last name was on the building, what would we do different for our guests? What would we do different for our coworkers? How do we think differently to become better at serving a multitude of guests, which then lead to the next phase, and that's the guest satisfaction piece. We feel that when you think of the multiple reasons why people stay in hotels, and if I even turn it back to you, think about your immense years that you've spent on the road and all the places you've been to. Maybe you can even share with me, give me some things, some reasons why you would have had to stay in hotels. What was forcing you to go out and travel and have to then find yourself staying in a hotel? Can you think of what all those different reasons would have been?
Well, obviously you want comfort. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that you're being taken care of, well taken care of, and not in a bombastic way, but to want to, if you want room service, you get room service. I don't know if that even exists sometimes today, but you want to make sure that it's nicely taken care of, that it's prompt, and you get what you asked for. But guests should also not treat, in my opinion, the hospitality workers like servants. They have to realize, in my opinion, it's a two-way street. And I've always been lucky enough, I guess, to know that, as you said, to be traveling in various countries even, when you're over there, you're their guest, and you treat them nicely.
Yes.
And don't be the ugly American. And that's in quotes. For those of you who don't know, yes, it was a book. Anyway, I want to tell the audience, no, we're not ugly Americans.
Yes.
Well, for me, ugly, what can I say? But anyway, not to go too far afield here, but indeed, just knowing that the people who do service you and serve you in the hotels do it nicely and respectfully, etc., and in kind they will get it back.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting part. And I think when you think of the purposes for people staying in hotels, it might be business travel, it might be funerals, weddings, family reunions, could be training for a new job, could be coming in to interview for a new job, it could be working on a long-term project that you then need temporary housing. I mean, you think of the number of reasons why people choose to stay in hotels, and to your point, understanding and really taking the time to understand what's really important to all of those people, and for the specific reason that they're staying with us. The needs of somebody staying in your hotel that might be there for a memorial service may be quite different than what the guest needs when they're staying there for a corporate meeting. And I think really empowering our associates within our hotels to truly take the time to seek first to understand and qualify why those people are staying with us, and then really training them and helping them understand how do you best serve that particular individual. That's really where we try to go with it, is really try to look at, if you think of a normal hotel, let's say you have 100 check-ins tonight. It's a Friday night, right? Let's say we got one of our hotels and you're dealing with that. It's really encouraging that person at the front desk to understand that, yes, I understand in your mind you may be thinking that I've got 100 check-ins tonight, and everybody that comes in is just 1/100th of that equation. But we try to get our people to look at it and say, but for that individual, it's 1 out of 1. The ratio is 1 out of 1. We hope. We hope they don't have a reason to stay at another hotel that night. But that's really kind of our message to our employees. Same thing with our housekeepers, letting them know that you come in the morning and you might have 16 rooms to clean that day. For you, it's 1 out of 16. But it's encouraging to stop, take a deep breath, and realize that they have an opportunity to influence 16 different people's lives in that particular day with how they choose to look at their job and what is the approach that they're taking in those rooms. Are they taking a little extra thoughtful care and doing some things to really show that they're going to take care of that individual? And to your point, we do feel like the more we do that, it is interesting how by really emulating that behavior, when we do it well within our hotels, it is amazing to think how it's reciprocated back to that employee, whether it be a tip, whether it be a letter that I get for one of our wonderful employees, whether it's just a gesture of thank you, gratitude, whatever it might be. That to me is wonderful. So there you got that associate engagement leads to guest satisfaction. You take care of your guests, then it leads to that financial performance. And so I feel like, having done this for so long, at times we have a tendency to put the emphasis on the financial performance first, when in reality, if you don't put forth the energy on the first two, the associate engagement and the guest satisfaction piece, you will not have a very well financially performing asset to begin with. So that's really when you ask the question about how much hasn't changed. The reality of it is, yeah, the technology's changed, the means to the end has changed, but what we get up to do every day and the essence of hospitality, I think, has been the same for decades.
It's wonderful. I've always felt too that the most important person, it even translates, in my opinion, to not only the hospitality industry but to any industry that has a receptionist. That's the company. If you're welcomed so genuinely and warmly, and they really mean, oh, it's so wonderful to see you, welcome to our property, et cetera, et cetera. We hope that your stay is fantastic and we'll do everything to make it that way, but that they really, really mean it, rather than from a book. And you can tell, and you, having been in the industry for so long, you probably know within 2 minutes if a person really has that quality and that characteristic to make sure that they are there to serve and not be servants, but to serve people who are spending their money and really making the hotel or the motel or whatever it is really a home away from home, even if it's for one night. You know yourself as a person who travels. When you walk into a room or a suite and you say, oh boy, you can exhale and say, oh boy, great.
It's interesting you say it that way, because I feel another one of the challenges I think we have in our industry is, whether it be investors, lenders, even some of the people that do it every day. We look at the hotel as being an asset, and you're selling an asset. So what do we have a tendency to do sometimes? We tend to think of a hotel room as a commodity. But in reality, to your point, when you made the comment, how do I feel when I get in that suite? It is the experience. That is really what we're selling. It's really not the commodity. I mean, a hotel room is a hotel room is a hotel room to a point. They have beds, they have phones, all the amenities to the hotels are pretty much the same. There's going to be some variances based on the segment of hospitality that you're staying in. but it is about that experience. How do people feel? What is that emotional response when people leave our hotels? That's what we're striving for. We want people to tell us and be very clear about saying that we did make a positive difference in their life. It just wasn't about providing a hotel room for them. You know, are we gonna hit that expectation every time? Of course we're not, but that is the goal. And to your point, Barry, it starts with us being able to ask ourselves, who do we want on our team? And we have if you don't mind me speaking about how we go about selecting
Please.
those people, but one of the things that we've done is we've actually created, and I've been doing this for a number of years now, we really try to ask ourselves, what can we do different in the recruitment process? What can we do before they even choose to say yes to staying, to working in our hotel? What can we do to really differentiate ourselves? And so one thing that I came up with was this, we call it the 5 A's, the 5 attributes that we're looking for in every associate that joins our team. And the 5 A's, or the 5 attributes, capital A, is attendance, appearance, awareness, aptitude, and attitude. And we have a letter that goes out that we attach to every application, and it basically lays these things out. And it basically says, hey, thank you for taking the time to apply. After reading this and learning about the 5 A's, if ultimately you feel you want to be part of our team, we look forward to continuing the employment process with you. If not, we fully understand. What's a little bit ironic is we did that, or I came up with the concept years ago because during the recession, we were getting a number of people coming in and applying for jobs that frankly didn't know hospitality. They weren't very passionate about hospitality, which frankly I understand. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're unemployed, you're gonna take advantage of any opportunity you think might fit you to help you, provide a living for yourself and your family. So I don't at all begrudge those people, but can you imagine being a management team of a hotel and trying to prioritize your time? You're spending hours interviewing people and talking to people that frankly really aren't a good fit. And so we really came up with this concept to figure out what can we do to really hope that we're going to have people coming in the door that really are choosing us, and they're choosing what this expectation is that we have for our employees. Mm-hmm. And so that's why we did it. But over time, we have found that it's a wonderful opportunity to engage people on the front end and really differentiate us as an employer. We talk about the A, attendance. We're a 365-day, 24-hour business, 24 hours a day business. We don't close. The ability to be at the hotel for your scheduled shifts and be there, wanting to be there, is crucial. Hotels don't have a setup of 10 call-in backup employees. We just don't schedule that way. We can't hire for that. So the importance of being there is incredibly important, of course, right? Like any job. Then we talk about, as I mentioned, appearance. We do have to present the image that our guests expect when they walk in through our doors. And so making sure that they understand clearly that proper grooming, wearing your uniform, having your name tag on, all those basic things are going to be a basic expectation if you want to work for us. We talk about awareness. Awareness of your surroundings, not only with what you're seeing with the guests that walk through the door, that's crucially important. If you see let's say it's 9 p.m. at night and you see that road weary, road warrior corporate person walking into the door, having some empathy for them, trying to understand at all where their day could have led them to. They may have woke up at 5 a.m. that morning and jumped on a plane to come to wherever they are, and what has that day led up to get to that point where you're walking through our door at 9 p.m. It could be the family that's visiting their relative in a hospital, and what are they dealing with. So being aware, really truly being aware of your surroundings, and then also being aware of the surroundings, the physical surroundings. Pay attention. When you're walking even out to take your lunch break. What does the hotel look like? Is there some trash to be picked up? Are there some things that don't look right that maybe you can inform a coworker about? Those are the things that we talk about awareness. And then we also talk about being aware of your coworkers. We strongly believe that our coworkers have a greater influence on somebody's ability to really enjoy their work environment, even frankly more than the leadership and the management of the hotel. Now, is it the leadership's responsibility to create that environment? Absolutely. And create that culture within the hotel? Absolutely it is. But it's really up to those coworkers to make it a place every day that they want to be a part of. So that awareness piece, being aware of your coworkers and the needs of your coworkers. And then we talk about aptitude. You don't need to know how to do everything in the hotel when you're hired day one, but we sure need you to come in with a want to learn. I tell my family all the time, I'll get up and I'll be leaving the house and I'll say, I'm going to school today. We're all going to school today. I truly do try to learn something new every day, because I feel like we can be we're better teachers when we're being good students. I strongly believe that in leadership. And when we forget what it's like to have that light bulb go on in our heads, I think we tend to then lose the value of helping other people turn that light bulb on. And so we talk about aptitude. You don't have to know everything, but we really do want you to come in willing to learn. And even if you've worked at another hotel or even 5 other hotels, we may do things differently here. And so we need you to come in with that fresh wanting to learn. And then of course the last A is the attitude piece. That's the piece you're talking about, Barry, wanting to help people, that spirit to serve. And if you come in with that right attitude, knowing that when you walk through our doors every day, that's a choice. And we're happy you chose it to be at our hotel. We're happy you chose to work with us. But along with that choice comes a responsibility and an expectation that you're going to be ready. You're going to be ready to serve your coworkers. You're going to be ready to serve those guests that walk into the door. And so that's kind of a little bit of a breakdown of the 5 A's and how do we find that right person to be part of our team.
That's marvelous that you've created that. It triggered a thought in my head that I've had some friends who worked for Disney, and one of their sayings to the employees is, remember, when you go out to that public, you're on stage. You're on stage. When you're off stage, you be off stage. But when you're with that public, you're on stage. And they're not just talking about the performers, they're talking about in their hotels or whatever. You're on stage, so perform, and be happy about it, of course. Now, I assume after all these years and all these wonderful hotels and motels for which you've been in charge, you may have had 1 or 2 bad experiences. And how do you handle a guest who is not particularly lovely?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because we sort of have this theory that you are basically 3% of the population. You're just not going to be able to please necessarily, right? And there could be a number of reasons for that. What I've learned, depending on the scenario, is first things first in my leadership role, really taking the time to understand what really happened with the circumstance. Because if we feel it was something that we made a mistake on, then we need to own that. As unpleasant as it may be, the reality of it is we're in a very human resource intensive industry in the hospitality business. And I make mistakes every day. And so to think that our employees aren't going to is just foolish. And so being able to truly understand what happened, if we made the mistake, just own it, acknowledge it, and then really find out from that particular individual, what can we do to make it right? So often, we want to assume that by discounting their room is going to make them happy. Well, if you're on a corporate expense account and it's not your money anyways, that's not necessarily going to be what it's going to take. So I think just really being humble about it, acknowledging the mistake, and then really asking the individual what they feel we can do. And a lot of times, it's just them getting an assurance that people care and that whatever maybe the mistake may have happened, it's not going to happen again. Obviously, we can't guarantee it, but I think they just want to know. They want to know that their words were heard. Then there's, of course, the circumstance where maybe we didn't make the mistake, and it's just a perception issue. And what I've learned there is, first and foremost, taking the time to understand what happened. And if it's something where I know for me, maybe it's a sense of humble confidence maybe over the years, but I don't have a problem educating our guests in a situation that sometimes they need to be educated. If they weren't clear, or if there was a misunderstanding of our policy, or something happened that maybe they thought should have happened, but frankly, our team did what it was that they were expected to do, then it's my role to back that employee, which I will do unconditionally in that situation, but then educate the guest. It's not gonna make it adversarial. It's not about that. We have to remember we're still in the hospitality industry. And even though they say, the guest is always right. Well, the guest isn't always right, but the guest is still always the guest, and we have to remember that. And so really taking the time to let them know maybe why something may have happened, I find really helps break down those barriers. And it's part of what we have to deal with every day.
Yeah, I'm thinking particularly of when I lived in Las Vegas and I worked for Howard Hughes. He owned six hotels. And of course, I was in the TV side of his business. He owned our CBS affiliate. But anyway, I got to work with some of the hotel people, and they had some, I'll call them big shots, in the entertainment industry who were particularly difficult.
I can't imagine Las Vegas. That must have been the norm, probably.
It was the norm.
Yeah.
But I am reminded of one incident here. I won't name the name of the hotel. But my wife and I, we were celebrating one of her birthdays, and we stayed at a particular hotel downtown, and a major star, and if I mention the star, you'll know the hotel, but one of his partners demanded that there would be a pack of cigarettes no more than 6 feet away from wherever he was in this gigantic suite. And the hotel had to accommodate that. And I can't imagine. They must have been tearing their hair out knowing they had to do this, but they did it. Yeah. But it was pretty rough.
Interesting. So. Yeah. Thankfully, I've not heard of anything like that. But that's a big part of it. And there are going to be times, even in those situations, where you have special circumstances that you want to do your best to accommodate. And I think that it's how do we view that? Do we view it as a burden, or do we view it as an opportunity?
Yeah.
And I think, to me, it starts with that right there. If we look at those even crazy opportunities, I can't imagine what that would even be like in a large suite, having to place cigarettes 6 feet away from somebody, no matter where they're going to be at any given time. But if we bring people on board that feel like there's an opportunity to wow somebody, yeah, even if they don't do it exactly right, it starts with that attitude.
Dan, I can't thank you enough. We've run out of time, but deeply appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Barry. Thank you very
You're
much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And shameless plug time, my book, it's available on Amazon, so take a look at some surprising stories in the book, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time here on FYI.